For many years now, I've been working as a freelancer on the side, whether it's working at a full-time job or just working as a freelancer full-time. It's something I've done for since I can remember, basically out of probably high school, and that's been over 10 years now. I'm gonna say, sad, I'm getting old. Shit. Um, what has been the hardest thing throughout that entire time is figuring out what to charge someone for my creative services or development services. So I am a designer who can code. So oftentimes you get hired for one thing or the other. And luckily enough, there's kind of a lot out there to go get from a freelancer's perspective these days, thanks to job boards or social media where your friends refer you, tag you and stuff, and say, "Hey, I'm looking for this gig," yada yada yada. You go and apply, do things like that. There's also LinkedIn with the recruitment style stuff going on, which can't say I'm a fan of, but I can see its purpose if you're really on the hunt to, be a contractor and just work from time to time at different places, if that works for you. I've been kind of more or less into the entrepreneurial mindset my entire career, and in that, I've actually quit my full-time job. I don't know how many, maybe last summer now, and have since moved on to my own business with my partner Alyssa at Couple of Creatives, which is a small agency focusing on building brands for small businesses and even large businesses. But we do everything in the sense of we mold your brand to, attract more attention, be it through websites, advertising, rebranding, stuff like that. Again, with that project, it goes back to pricing. It's one of the hardest things you have to do, and I know it can probably relate to anyone who's had to price their own work on a given basis. The question I'm always asked from any person, like 2 seconds in, it seems like, how much do you charge per hour? And to me, I'm always wondering, like, why do they think I charge per hour? And in hindsight, yeah, I do from time to time. And I think for me and for our business, it's based off of just how we work, or what kind of work I'm doing. If it's a long-term project, sometimes, yeah, hourly makes sense. But if it's something where the client actually gives me some information, which is, for fuck's sake, the hardest thing in the world, it seems like, they, just to get what they really want out of a project, is another challenge. So, all that said, if they do give me that, it allows me to maybe think more of the project-based route. And I think that's the route I prefer, simply because everything's kind of defined and laid out. You can even get into how long it will take and actually give a pretty good estimate. And starting out, I sucked at that, and I think anyone would. When you're not so sure about how long something takes you, especially if you don't know a technology, say for instance in web development, you're having to learn a language just because of a project, or hack something together just to get to a point to where the client's happy. That takes time. So if you can't factor that in or not know in advance, that could either put you in some bad water with the client based off how many hours you occur, if you're going hourly, or if you're charging a flat rate, that could shoot yourself in the foot because you didn't charge enough because of the time spent. So I think it's a double-edged sword, and it's a tough challenge. So with creative services or even digital or development, I don't think there's a way to just flat rate things. I wish there was a way to make, like a SaaS, software as a service kind of app for marketing, actually we just torched an idea on that at the Couple of Creatives, because we had our website geared in such a way that it was the SaaS model. You bought this for this flat rate, and it was recurring. There's this whole mindset about it, but it just didn't pan out because no one understood it. So I think that's the problem, is conception these days of creative services, and there's a lot of devaluement in it. And sadly, sites like bidding websites, I'm not going to name them by name, but yeah, I think you know what many of them are. Or Craigslist, for example, a lot of people get taken for advantage on that site, and it's just because obviously you need the money, but you know you have to just succumb to these shitty projects because that's all you can find. And then from my own perspective, those all affected me, of course. But the big one for me is the DIY kind of sites or applications, whatever you want to call them. Be they a logo builder or a theme customizer or something like that. Um, they serve their purpose, and I get why they are what they are. But man, they are killing what I would call my industry, just which is the kind of web design and development industry. And I've actually, been into these and had to use them for clients I have, just because that's what they came to me with. And the whole time I was just cringing. And I get it. It's cheaper. It's easier to get going. But it's just one of those things where it's really tough. So going back to project-based stuff, that's where we typically quote, and a lot of times it's based around my hourly rate. So a lot of times, if I factor my hourly rate out in my head, this given age of me and how long I've been working, I'll take that, multiply it a few times, and really think hard about how long something will take me based on the deliverable of the flat rate project. And then I'll combine all those things, invoice or create a proposal for the client, and then outline what each thing costs, and then it's just really clear. So I think that's again why I kind of gravitate that route. When I do hourly, it's typically when there's a lot of unknowns. So if a client or a business approaches us and we need to just be their go-to for certain things, hourly makes sense in that, right? Like, because it really depends on, of course, your skill set. If you can do only a couple things, obviously they're only going to come to you for those things, and you might want to charge per project in that, right? But if you can do a lot of different things, like Alyssa and we kind of team up in that, right? So I can do some technical stuff, and she does design and social media marketing and content writing and all that stuff. We collaborate and are able to deliver a lot of things. So if a company comes at us and just wants us, say, for the consulting aspect, which is a whole nother can of worms you can open, it's really lucrative in the long run. So I don't hate either way to price. I'll get that clear. But I think flat rate to me just is clearer. It's more approachable. And when I charge a client, it's never all at once. Obviously, you say take a down payment just like you would on a car or house or something, and then you can finance it in any which way. We typically go the 30-30-40 model, which is 30% down, 30% at, like, say, when a design milestone is complete, and then 40 when, say, the end of the project, or if it's a website, the site launches. Then it goes back to how we get paid. Typically, we're pretty old-fashioned, and we do, like, I literally manually create invoices for clients and send them either email or even mail, just based on many of the clients I work with. Some are just old-fashioned. They don't prefer to pay online or have you email them, something important like that. And that's fine. That's fair. What blows my mind is how many apps out there exist that are tailored around that. And I get it, but how many you pay for the fees for the app, then the fees for the payment processing, so you're left with probably like 5% less of what you should have gotten paid in the beginning, just because you were too lazy to do it manually. So I don't mind wasting a little more time creating that stuff and doing it the old school way. So far it's working pretty well for us, so I can't complain. I think that's more or less it, though. The pricing war, it's a tough one, and you'll always, I think, in our if you're a contractor or freelancer or entrepreneur like me, you're going to struggle with it no matter what. And each person, I think you have to kind of talk to them first and get a real idea of what they need, when they need it, if they're going to change their mind down the line, like, and which always happens, of course. And then, I don't know, countless other variables. And if you can get the most information out of them, and I guarantee you they won't tell you their real budget. I'll just say that straight up. Just don't. It's almost not worth asking, but we try to just to get them to say something. You know, like usually it's not much, or we have, you know, they just don't want to say it. So anyway, I'd like to see what your thoughts are on pricing. So let me know in the comments, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.